So team, welcome to the day 2 for these software testing tutorials. Hope you all are doing good and you can hear me fine. So right now we have a session that is going on live, but it is the same session that is a continuation for day 2. Now, I know a lot of you have joined this as the first demo session and have probably not seen the video that I've requested each of you to see, which is the day 1 video, right? Not to worry, all you have to do is go back to itelearn.com and you will find the day 1 video out there, right? There is it's a small session, about 25 minutes, and the first 10 minutes or so is all spent about the training overall and so on, okay? So when you go and visit itelearn.com, you would see the chapter 1, QA chapter 1, software testing fundamentals. All right. As you see at this point, we have only video 1 out here, and this is the session that has been done a few weeks back. It was not a live session. This was just a session that got recorded independently. Okay. And I will give you a quick overview of the session, so do not worry about it. But please do watch this video before you get to the second session, which is the one we are in right now. Okay. Now, the essence of what we're going to do today is this. I will give a quick recap of what we did in day 1. Okay. That is the session before this. And then I will talk about how we're going to go about enhancing what we have done in terms of test cases, test data, and so on. Some of the naming conventions and executing the tests. At the end, I will talk about interview questions and few practice exercise for things that we have done in the first couple of days. Okay. Since this is a live webinar, we have a very large audience present in this live environment using GoToTraining, correct? All of you have been muted. Okay. If you have any issues with the audio, please ensure that you use mic and speakers, or you can also dial in through your telephone. All right. So at this point, team, I'm going to take a quick second and see if you're comfortable. If anyone has an issue, please put it on the chat, or we will continue from there on. All right, team. So let's move forward. If you have questions, please do not raise your hand in the GoToTraining session. Rather, you should put your question in the chat. I will come to chat messages slowly as we go through the session, not right away. All right. Now, let's look at what we really did in day 1. This was a few weeks back, but if you watched the video, it would have been a new recap. Okay. I gave a kind of a scenario to you, a situation in which you have taken up a position as a QA engineer or a junior QA engineer or a QA trainee in one of the projects. And let's say, for example, of our exercise, we are taking Pinterest.com as the application. Okay. Let's say that you are going to be part of a testing team that is working for Pinterest.com or a similar application. Why are we doing this? So that you get an exposure to a very practical way of working as a software test engineer, and this way you're building the expertise. Theoretical knowledge is not that critical as you are involved and see actually how people are doing it. That is the essence of what I want to give in this. Okay. So I gave that background to you, and I said, what is your primary role and responsibility? What is it that you're trying to do, and so on? Where are we in terms of how do we take our steps towards software testing? Okay, you are an absolute beginner. So what do you do? How do you go about, and so on? One thing that I emphasized in day 1 is that the whole aspect is to try and ensure that Pinterest.com is working the way it is supposed to be working, which is basically the functionality of the application, right? And that it is not causing any issues to the users of it. And that is one of your prime responsibilities, that everyone is able to easily work with it. There is nothing wrong happening with the application and so on. Okay. Now, as part of that, there is a very fundamentally important aspect of how we go about doing it, and that is called your process. Okay, if you see it, I mentioned it 3 times in here. The reason process is very important is because you will perform it in a specific manner, everything that you do. All right. So unless you follow a process or a structure to it, we will not be a successful software test engineer. All right. That is very, very important thing. Now, as part of this process, here are the 4 steps that we have put down. Very important. So let's do a revisit of them. We want to understand the application as to what is it that it is doing. Okay. Understand the scope of our activity. What is it that we are supposed to be doing as part of our roles and responsibilities? Okay. How do we go about documenting everything that we see? And how do we communicate it to others? Okay. So this is the one which we created as part of the day 1. And then we said, hey, you know what? Let's start working on creating some scenarios that we want to test. What is a scenario? It is a specific end-to-end representation of a process. Okay, anything general. Okay, let's say we talk about Facebook. Okay, one of the significant scenarios in Facebook is you go in and you like a page or you like a post and so on. Okay, so the whole process of you logging in, seeing the post or the page that you like, and then you put a like on it and seeing that it has happened, that whole process is a scenario. Okay, we will come to the definitions after we practically experience it. That way it is very easy for each of us. All right. Now, one of the scenarios or one of the aspects or functionality of the application that we wanted to test was the feature called as categories. Okay, so do not worry on this sheet right now. We will come back to this sheet, but I wanted you to look at the categories portion. Categories is basically saying that, so again, let's recap in terms of our knowledge of the application. This is an application where users across the world are using this application as a pinboard. What is a pinboard? You take a small post-it or you take a small piece of paper, put some information in it and stick it into your board where not only you are seeing but everyone around you is seeing. So if you have a small board at home, then you're putting reminders or when you're supposed to pay your bills or some important events coming up for your kids and all this on this pinboard, right? If it's in a school or a university, you would see a lot to do with your course and other extracurricular things that are being put in there. So this is an online pinboard. So depending on your area of interest, you could look at what others are doing. Okay, what others are putting this and saying, hey, you know what, this is what I like. So it's got a social plugin also to it. I am not going deep into explaining it, but let's say that we are still very, very new into it. But the interest level is trying to test into specific areas, and this time we're focusing on something called as categories. Okay. Now, if I give you this application and say test it, all right, and that is all I say. Okay. If I say that you've got 30 minutes, test it. Don't ask me a single question. Then what will you do? So even if I say don't ask me a single question, someone will first raise their hand, say, hey, you know what do I test? Where is the functionality? But what is expected? What is not expected? How do I know this is correct? How do I know this is wrong? Right? So that is where you document everything. All right? You document everything and then you communicate it to others that this is what you're doing. That way, if there is an issue in what we're doing, we are able to identify it before we put a lot of hard work into it. Okay. Now let's get into day 2 team. So I'm going to save this before I start making changes and call it as day 2. All right. In this day 2, let's focus on this testing process. I created some dummy test cases or scenarios in here. Okay, I want to focus on something called as a test scenario. Okay, now, but to build a scenario, let's talk about something basic things called as test cases team. Okay, as a test engineer, one of the primary building blocks for what we do is built around our concept of a test case and how comfortable we are working around these test cases. Okay, so I'm going to call this as test cases. Now, what really are test cases? I do not want a definition, team, and I tell you why definitions are a little dangerous. Number one, it shows a very theoretical skill. Two, it shows that you're not creative, where you're putting your actual expertise into defining what something is. Okay, and you are not really explaining things the way you believe it, and that's why it becomes very standard. But definitions are good because they have a single meaning. There's no confusion in terms of what each is supposed to mean. Okay, now to build test scenarios, let's go through a basic structure called as test cases. Test cases are very simple, readable, doable blocks of things, very easy for us to understand. What are these test cases? Let me erase this picture and draw a new one. Test case, look at it like a block. Okay, now every test case is about doing a few things. Okay, is about executing some steps and expecting to see something as an output due to this. All right, so you perform a specific action or a series of actions or steps, and depending on what you do, you get a specific output. Okay, for example, I will say that one of the test cases is that when I go to categories and I click on, let's say, education, I expect to see this specific image on the top. All right, so if I'm saying that, hey, this is what I expect to see on the top, then that is a test case. Now, what are those steps that I built about it? One is go to Pinterest.com. Second, get your mouse over categories. Third, click on education. Fourth, verify that this image is there. Fifth, report it. That is your test case. All right, so let me first delete what I have here and start writing on it again. Now, we have something called as order. Order is basically in which order do we want to execute something, or we want to go about executing the process. We will not worry about an order because order can keep changing. But I want to use something which is uniquely identifying what I am doing. Okay, and that I'll call it as test case ID. All right, so test case ID or identification, or we can also keep it as TCID, is something that is uniquely telling me that, hey, you know what, this is this test case. So I can do something like, 1001. Sorry, this is 10,001 in fact. And the next one I can say is 10,002, and the next one I can say is 10,003, and so on. Okay, let's say that this is my naming convention right now. Let me create a few more and go about it. So if I have decided as part of what I do as a junior test engineer that this is the names I'll give, I will follow it. Now, what was my test case? Verify that 50 readerizers. Look at these terms people come up with these tests, right? Interesting. This all basically merged and evolved terms. Verify that readerizers appears on the education theme of Pinterest.com as the first post. That is what is the test case overall. Now, is this not easy for someone to execute it? Right? Why do I need to write steps against it? It is important. Why is it important? Because unless you write specific steps. If tomorrow something changes in the application and people are not able to replicate those steps, then they know that, hey, this is not an error. The steps have changed. We need to update those steps. Like, let's say categories has moved somewhere else in the page. Okay. Now, what are the steps for this? Step number 1 is go to what is this? Pinterest.com. Right? Team, very important. These are our thought process of thinking through how we do things and documenting them is very, very critical. That is what will make you successful. Okay, go to Pinterest.com. So I'm trying to replicate that as I perform this. Go to Pinterest.com, then move mouse over education. Okay, 3. Move mouse over. Is this education team that I need to move the mouse over? You can freely use the chat because I can see your messages and you can post it. Okay, move mouse over categories, not education. Click on education, and 4, visit the education section. All right. Now, what to expect? I expect 50 reader rises as the first post in this section. Now, this is what I created. All right. Now, look at what we have done. A result will come when we execute it. Right now, there is no execution. We're just creating test cases, so we don't have to worry. Verify that readerizers appear on the education team of Pinterest.com as the first post. Okay. Now, what we have done in this case is one specific test case like that. Now, if I create another test case, how about this? If I go into technology, all right, I want to test the same thing for technology. Now, in this case, I want to see that CNET 5 best beta wireless routers is expected. So the easiest way for me to do this is to, number 1, go here, copy this whole thing, put it here, right? Since it's the same thing, almost exactly the same thing, and say that this is the what I expect to see. Instead of 50 readerizers here, CNET as the first post in this section. So this is what we are seeing right now, and I'm saying that verify that not readerizers. This one. This is the name of the test case. Go to Pinterest.com, move mouse or category, click on technology. Okay, visit the technology section. Right. How do I really know that I am in the technology section within Pinterest? Does it show this anywhere else on the page that I can look at? There is a scroll to top. Then where else can I see that there is a technology in here? Because I want to be smart about it. How do I know that these are all technology? There's no way that I'm saying that this is technology at the moment, right? So there should be some other way. If I go to categories, do I see that highlighted in any cases? No, it is the same. Exactly, there's something appear in the URL. Why don't we put that additional check here? And I'll say this is verification number 1. Verification number 2 is URL will be this. Okay. In the same manner, I'm going to put this and say URL will be something different. See, we are showing what is expected. Now, team, we'll go back and let's note again. There is currently no documentation. There are no requirements, or there is no functional specification or functional documentation, blah, 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 blah. And please get used to it. 95% of cases, you may not find it also. Okay. What does that mean? That you are going to actually create a lot of it. You may jump into applications that are already built. Okay. 95% may be an exaggeration, but I'm saying that expect it. that you don't have any support in terms of documentation. Okay. Yes, you're right. See, now as part of my own creation, if I make mistake, like here, if I leave technology, right? If I go about testing it, then it is an issue. Now, this is not going to be technology for the first time. It is supposed to be education. Will it show me education here? Right? So I'll put education in here. All right. Now, this test case and this test case, what are they? Are they very similar? Do you see if these two test cases are very similar? No, yes, kind of, yeah. Okay, so let's see what is the similarity and what is not similar in them. Okay, just two right now. So if I put this into a block and look at it, then what is similar, what is not similar? Is step 1 similar? Yes. Is step 2 similar? Yes. Is step 3 similar? No. Okay. Is step 4 similar? No. Actually, let's talk about same and similar. Same and similar, you know the difference, right? I don't know theoretically, I mean, can't give it definition wise. Same is an exact replica. There's no difference in it. Similar is somewhat like that, but not exactly the same. That is the difference, right? Somewhat close to it. So 1 is the same step. 2 is the same step. I'm talking about here. Go to Pinterest.com, same. This is same. Click on something is here. Click on something else is here. So that's similar actually. Visit the something is here. Visit the something is here. So they're similar again. So if you look at this, the test steps are similar, and also what to expect are kind of similar, right? Because you are expecting a URL, you are expecting a post to be there. Now, this is where you come to saying and differentiating what you keep in a test case and what you take out into a test data. Okay, all right. That is how you can easily try and put a lot together into the same set of execution. Okay. Now, I am not showing a very what do you call that? Standard way of defining these things. Okay, we will go about creating templates and form them to make something standard eventually. Now, I will include a new column into this, and I'm going to call this as test data. Sorry, 1 second. My sheet is a little big. If I could minimize it, but the fonts will become too small. So let me not do that. Keep it 100. Okay. So here I'll say test data. Now, why am I saying test data? I want to keep everything same and move only certain thing into test data. Click. This is, I'll say, is ABC. Visit the education section. This I'll say is XYZ. Okay. Or why not more simple? Category 1. Category 1. Okay, and here is the same thing. URL is also category equals category 1. Okay, that is the thing that is changing. Okay, read rises best wireless routers, blah blah blah. Okay, no, actually it's not this. As the first post in the section here, I will say this is also part of category 1, post 1. Now, do you see what we are saying? Now, what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to create a new sheet. Why should I create a new sheet? If I see my one sheet is getting complex, right? If what I already have is getting complex, it is better to try and put information here and then see if we want to move it, okay? So, I will put different categories. What are these categories? These out here, in here, and what I expect as the first post on that out there. Okay, now look at it. So I'll say this is category name, fair enough, and I will say the other one is category name. what is it? First post or first pin, let's say. Let's call this as pins. Okay. Now, by the time we finish this and by the time we get into a little later itself, you'll see everything is changing on the application. That is fine. That will give us more flexibility to play things around. Okay. So now I've created 2 new columns. Let me quickly create this and tell you why this becomes very important for us. Now, I can put education in here and say, as part of education, I expect to see, where is that? Will this come up for us? Is this education? Gone. The reader is already gone long back somewhere. I think so. Yep. That's fine. See, it keeps changing. So if I say this, then we'll see what will happen. Shape sorting is what I expect. And then what is the second one? Technology. So as part of technology, what do I expect to see? I would love this below. Right. So what we have done is this, team. We are taking the data out of the test case and putting it separately, and I'm saying it is in a separate Excel. Okay, so if I keep everything like this, I can now delete this. I don't need this anymore, and say repeat for different sets of test data. Now let's name this as test data, and I'm going to say that this is, each of the row of this is a test data set. And this becomes very important for you in a lot of cases. Now, when I went into automation, I never focused that extent about it. So this also I'll say 10001, 10002, 10003, and so on. Okay. Education, shape sorting. Okay. Technology, I would love this below. And let's say that I go into art and I put this as Bob Dylan by Richard Ave, whatever. Okay. Art. Is it art or is it arts? Okay. Hey, how about the URL? Didn't we forget it? Easy. Let's put this here and I'll say URL. And for this is the URL. For this, where is technology? This is the URL. For category education, this is the URL. Now, I have created just a sample of 3 sets of test data. Okay, I have created a sample of 3 sets of test data. Now, I can go, this is actually no longer a testing process. Initially, we started creating this as testing process. This is actually test cases. Okay, verify the URL and the first post of verify for each category. Each category of Pinterest.com. That is what we're doing. Go to Pinterest.com, move mouse over categories, click on category based category 1 from test data. Okay, visit category 1, visit cat, let's just say cat 1 post 1 or pin 1, this is right. Verify first pin is from the test data. URL will be whatever this is, category cat. Right now, I have written the English portion of it in saying that test data is somewhere in here, right? So now I should specifically be more precise about it. So now I'll say, let's execute this for 1000, 10,001, 10,002, 10,003. But hey, isn't these names confusing with what we have out here already? Correct? Is it not confusing? Yes, it is. And hence, let's have a naming convention that is better. And we're going to call this as TC001, TC002, TC003, and so on. That way, I am saying that some things are test cases, some things are test steps, and so on. That way, we can easily identify what we are working with. So this I can call it as TD001, TD003. Now, please note this, team. It is not about you trying to write down whatever I say and so on. No, you are actually going to practice on what I'm showing you, and you're going to actually start filling up this Excel and proceed from there on. Very, very important, please. Okay, because now after we do this, I'm actually going to do an execution of it after we write a couple of more test cases. You help me writing another couple of test cases. We will go about doing the execution for it. Right? So Control C, Control V. Test data one. Now here, let's change it accordingly. I have test data here. I'm going to call this as TD001, TD002, TD003. Now, any questions so far, please? What we have done? I'm actually proceeding in a very gradual and slow manner so that you are able to pause this video, able to interact with what I'm doing and perform the same on the application, and repeat this at your end, please. All right. Now, look at it this way, team. I have shown you what are test cases. What is testing cases? Wrong word. Test cases. And I showed you what is test data. Okay. So I can take one test case and repeat it for different sets of test data, okay, and see how it works out and how the application behaves with it. Okay, why am I not writing a test plan before this? Yes, I did. The background, the R&R, the software testing, all this is my high-level test plan, not a detailed one. When we get to the second project, using either Bugzilla or Jira, we will get into a different thing. But I want you to see how we evolve to get there. Okay, why we need test cases, why we need test data, all of these things. Right now, you have created a test case. You have put what is expected, and you said what are the test data that you want to execute it for. Okay, we'll come to the result later. Now let's do one more. Okay. I am going to create another test case. Team, help me with identifying another test case, please. How about everything or popular or gifts? Login, I actually want to keep it for you. Or how about change language? Actually, this is going to be tricky, but we should try. It is actually not doing much, but how do you know? I would not touch language right now because I don't even know how to come back to it. But again, localization, the language-based testing is again very big thing, which we should remind me. We should definitely look at something on that front later, please. Okay. Now, login is something I want to do. But okay, let's talk about popular or let's talk about gifts. Why not gifts? There's something very standard with gifts, correct? So how about saying that verify gifts, or let's see. Something in gifts. Okay, verify that gifts are in the specific category or bands. How about that? Like verify that the pins from gifts fall under specific category of price, or not category, range of price selected. You see what I'm saying? This is going to be very interesting thing. Why? Because if I say gifts 20 to 50, for example, anything I take randomly, any post that I take should have a value that is in that range only. The URL is different. Now, help me with the test steps for it. One is go to Pinterest.com. Okay. Then move mouse over gifts, right? Click on range of gift. Yes, visit the pins from that range. Now this is what we will perform. Okay, what to expect? One, URL is nice because see, URL has this format. Okay, if it is not, then something is also wrong, right? This I'll say is low range, and price end is high range. Okay, and that is number one, correct? Or number two, either way, that doesn't matter as long as at the end we are testing everything. Now this is a project team, it is not a tutorial. Please remember this. This is a project that we are doing together. We are not doing tutorial alone. Okay, I want you to get involved into doing it, how we go about creating different things. Now gifts, different categories. The great thing is we have only a few categories. Am I bad with mouse, or is this messy? I go to gifts, and by the time I'm coming down slowly, if I'm a grandma doing it, it is tough, right? See, this is a UI based issues. These are all UI based issues. This is happening because the gap between these two. By the time I'm coming down, it's happening. Okay. Anyway, that was a small diversion, but let me put this here. Verify that is it every post falls under that range of price. Okay. Now what is the test data in this case? Can I take this and this and this and this and this and this? No, this is a different set of test data that I've been using for something else. This is a category name, there's a first pin, there is a URL, and so on. Okay. Now let's talk about something additional here called gifts. See, I have two options here. The easiest option right now is I'll put gifts here and start adding values into that also. And I'll say, actually this is, see, it will become tough for me. Okay, let's say I add a new column into the same set of test data. This is actually getting very interesting for us. Okay, if I add a new column in the same set of test data, is it possible? Probably. Why not? Let's try $1 to $20. So I'll say this is $1 to 20. Okay, let's say the next one is $20 to $50. Okay, this is $20 to 50. And the next category is, let's say, $50 to 100. $50 to 100. Now, is this the only set of test data that I require to execute the next test case? No. Why? I also need something else, is it? What else do I require? URL, correct, because that is what I'm verifying for. I also expect a URL to be there here. So I take this and put this here and say URL and say that this is the URL I expect. In this case I'll say 1 to 20. Okay, and here I'll say this is 50 and this is 21, I guess, right? 20 to 50. Okay, and here I'm going to say 100 and this is 50 to 100. Now, any issues that you think or see so far on this? Yeah, there is an issue. I have one URL here, another URL here. Which URL am I going to use for what? Correct? And if I say that this is a gift, then that's a problem, right? For gifts, I'll use this URL. For categories, I'll use this URL. So what is it meaning? That the data that I use to test is dependent on the test case itself. Okay, the application can have huge sets of test cases, but unless I club test cases under a specific section or a specific module, I will have tough time with the test data also. All right, and that is why it is important that you club your test data, your test cases, everything under different modules. Okay, and hence these are used for module 1, and let's call them as categories. Okay, that is one module team. Now we are coming to breaking down the entire application into modules. The other one, let's call it as gifts. Okay, we are going to call this as gifts, the other one. The third one, as you will expand as part of your exercises, you can call it as login or members or something like that. All right. Depending on the category we are, our test cases are different and our test data will also be different. And that is how we have to store them in that fashion. Okay, so now let's do it that way. Okay, so I'm going to save this, but start with test cases and say that insert a category or a module in here and say what module does this belong to. This belongs to my module called category. Okay, is this under category team? No, this is under gifts. Do I have only one test case under category? Right now I have only one test case under category. Yes, but tomorrow I can have hundreds of test cases created under category. It is different combinations or variations of it. Now, how do I know test case 001 is belonging to a category, a specific category? Sorry, a specific module. Easy way is, let's say that we describe it this way. I'll say CAT, the first 3 characters I will use from the module cat underscore TC001. Okay, here I'll say GIF underscore TC002 or TC001. Team, am I confusing anyone or are you all with me? Now I'm saying the way we name, that naming convention, this specific section that I'm talking about, that we put as a standard is something that we are evolving, we are developing. We started with something very basic. We felt that, hey, we are having issues with it, so we're changing it. Now, if I create a new test case in this category, okay, I can call it as TC002. Okay, blah blah blah. This we have not yet come. Whatever we do, we can change this later. Correct? Now, what I could do is I could create my test data also for different sets of categories. Okay, so I can say that, hey, this is cat underscore TD001, cat underscore TD002, cat underscore TD003. Okay. Now, if I put a new column here and say which category it belongs, there is a small problem. The small problem is that sometimes there are values that are common, sometimes there are values that are different. That is fine. I will say insert and call this as module, and what module does it belong to? I know for sure this belongs to category because that is how I'm naming it. Now, for gifts, I will change it. Underscore TD001. Okay, this I'm going to call this for gifts. Now, is there a category name? Is it important for gifts? No, this is not important for me, right? This is correct. It's actually range. This is not gifts. Okay, range, or even better, gift range. Okay. So in this case, I will move this gift range below here. Okay, and this URLs in here. Okay. Now, let me quickly put this in, then I'll be able to quickly explain and walk you through it. I don't need 2 URL columns. 1 URL column is enough. Right? This is our preparation of testing. Okay. Then we will come to the actual testing itself. This is based on what skill and knowledge we have right now. Right? It is 003. Gifts. Okay. Now, look at it, team. I have one category of tests. Okay. Sorry. Now, since there is a word category being used somewhere else, I should not use it. I have one module of test data, and in this module, I don't require a gift range as a field. Okay, so I leave it blank. That is fine. In the other module for gifts, I don't require a category name, the first pin, or so on, but I require a URL, but I require a gift range. Okay, this is different, correct? Now, depending on what test case I want to execute, all right, let's give this a better color. Actually, that's okay for now, but at least make it correct sized. Okay, depending on what category what module I'm executing, I should be able to point to that specific set of test data. So let's say that this is my category. So I'm going to go to Notepad. These are the 3 test data that I will use to test this one. Oops. Okay. For the second test case, which is the first test case under gifts, I will then say that, hey, you know what? Not this. Let's take these 3 sets of data and test it. So team, if there are any questions, you can please let me know once I've completed this. I'm just slowly developing what we're supposed to be doing. The more issues and challenges we face doing it, that is how we can easily come to learning new things as part of it. All right. Gifts, TD001, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Now, see how we've developed slowly into these 2. There's nothing in this. Let me not put anything. So I have created one test case and I said, hey, test it against 3 different sets of data. I have created another test case and it said, hey, test it against 3 different sets of data. Or why not 4 different sets of data? Sure, let's go and put one more here. Name it as TD004. Okay. What is the range? In this case, 100 to 200. So I'm going to call this as 100 to 200. That's the range. Okay. Data also changed. Go back here and call this as GIF underscore TD004. Now what we have done, team, is we have created some basic modules or and a simple test scenario for each of those modules. Now, if you go about doing it, then we will say, hey, how many modules are there in this? Right, Nalini, there's a specific reason I've done that. I'll come to it. Okay, so I will create a new sheet in here and call this as my modules. Okay, application modules. Application modules. Now here I will use this to list different types of modules. Module name, description. Okay, as we fill different modules, we will fill the descriptions, gifts, login out here. So I'm leaving the description right now. We could fill this later. Right? I've created a new one. Now, do I need this R&R background? Keep it. Okay, it doesn't hurt for us to have all of them in one place. Okay. Now, modules is created. Description for that. There is a test data. There are test cases assigned to each module. Good. Now, any questions before I move forward into the next process of trying to test? Let me see. So many messages. I know there are over 90 people in this audience right now. So I want to make sure that I have everyone with it. But primarily, remember this, team, that the reason I'm trying to do this is with interactions, I get a lot of new things. But the whole intent is to take them and put them as video sessions. And most of you who are watching it as a video itself right now. Let's see. Birju, you said you didn't understand why you created another Excel sheet. Okay, so I've created Excel sheet after Excel sheet because as we go along, you will realize that we will create a lot of content within our whole testing process. Okay, That is important. So you will know that we will continue to create new Excel sheets to make better sense of what we're trying to do. So I think that is done also on this call. Dyna, like category name first pin. Okay, what are the difference between test cases and test data? Okay, so what is the difference between test cases and test data? So test cases is basically what you want to do. Okay, test data is what is the inputs that will change what you expect about what you want to do. It's very simple is this. Okay, let's say driving a car is your test case. Okay, you want to turn your car to the left is your test case. Okay, now what is the test data? Is the angle at which you're turning your steering wheel and the speed at which you are and the road conditions. Depending on that, you will see how much turn you make. Correct? So this speed, angle of your turn, and the road conditions are the test data. Okay? You change the test data, your test case, it will still turn the car. Okay? That is the test case. But the output of it will change. Right? Is that making sense? Will it be possible to export these test cases in Excel to Quality Center? I am not touching Quality Center, not a big fan of it myself, Nalini. But you can take it in specific formats and import this Excel into various test management systems. Is it not click on category? Okay, login. No, I don't think we are trying to click on any of them. It's just mouse over, right? It's a drop-down menu. Okay, let's see. Let's do. I'm actually going to come from here. How would you record result if a particular test data set fails? Correct, exactly. Now it gets interesting. How do I record? Because when I'm executing this, I may see that, hey, you know what? For each time I'm executing it, depending on the data, my result can change. How do we record it? So we will come to that when we get into that. In fact, I think it's going to be next session, the execution of it itself. Can you give example of test case 2 for gift, category, or gift? Test case 2 for category or gift. Mark, what was that question, Mark? Difference between test case and test scenario. Okay, test case, test scenario. We will come to test scenario a little later. Right now I'm talking about the test case. Most of the times it is the same thing. Okay, it is exactly the same thing. All right, there's no difference between a test case and test scenarios. However, the general thing is that test scenario has more than one test case into it. And when we go to use cases, when we go to what use cases and what test scenarios are out of a use cases and so on, it will become even more easier. Okay, by definition wise, nothing significantly different. Okay, larger set of test cases combined together, more strategic beginning and ending, they become a test scenario. What would we record if a particular test data set fails? We're coming to that. Okay, different between that. I'm just reading the comments on the chat. Okay, yeah. So I made a few mistakes of my own. Why all data in one sheet with many modules? That would be wide sheet. Exactly. You're right. Perfect. As we go about, you will see that this test data, we will keep on adding different columns to it, and it is uncontrollable. Okay. In an Excel-based format, this is very challenging. Okay, but right now it looks okay. When we go about into a little bit more complexity of it, you will see that, hey, how does different versions of this testing world evolve? Why are people doing it this way and not this way? But this is the building blocks for us of how we go about and being a test engineers. Okay. Now, when we come back tomorrow, we will actually get into testing these sets of test data and seeing what we did correct, what we did wrong, how do we handle different situations as they come to us and so on. Okay. As an exercise, can you create a couple of test cases for login, create some test data for login, and try and replicate what we have done here. Okay. So what we are doing and so on. Now, I have put a few questions here in terms of interview questions. Okay. And the exercise. Let me give you a idea of exercise and then we'll end with this interview question thing. Okay. Exercise is, I want you to write new test cases for login functionality, create sample test data for the login functionality, We will execute these test cases, and how do we go about capturing and reporting the results? This is still pending, so do not come to this. We will come to this later. Okay, but at a high level, these are some of the interview questions. Now, I will put a text version of this also on the website so that you don't have to, I don't have to read through each of them, and we will try and give different answers to it. Very basic. What do you typically see being asked in different types of interviews? We will try and keep this format for every class, so there's more information coming overall to it for you. Okay. While I have the screen, any last few questions that I can take, please? Let's see. Okay. When do we get video of the session? Okay, it'll take few hours for me to convert and upload. Please visit the blog, not the blog, the website itlearn.com. You should see it there. How do we test dynamic pages when pins are changing? Correct. Now you will see that what we have done seem to be logical, but pins will keep changing. What will happen then? What would another care of category module? Case of category. This test case is of similar nature. Mark, I still didn't get your question, but I will definitely take up your question if you put it more explicitly for me, please. Test steps, yes, is step-by-step process. Test scenario you're saying. Okay. Yes, we will cover test strategy, test planning, effort estimations, a lot of these things at length, but we will go through it gradually. How do we do the exercise? Like I've done, create a simple Excel and go about doing it, please. Login, we'll discuss tomorrow. Will you be taking on an e-commerce site that include complex credit card processing? There's nothing called complex credit card processing, all that. Okay, there's an e-commerce, and there's a part of it is the shopping cart and so on. So let's see if we can pick up an application where we can probably do something out here itself. I don't know. All right, we could probably look at that too. Let's see. Does pooling of all test cases form a test data? Nope, it doesn't. Another example of test case for category module. Oh, another example for test case for category module. Sure, but do we have time today for that? I don't know. Okay. Let's say if I go about categories, let's see what else is there. Okay. If I go to a specific category, all right, and we, let's say if I say comment on it, does a category section show up there? No. If I say like here, does a category section show up here? No, it always asks me to log in. Repin will also make me log in. But if I click on expansion, does it show the category anywhere? Head of a woman, blah, blah, blah. 4 repins. It doesn't show me a category anywhere. From Art Love, repin 3 hours ago. That means, what is this? I think we should be able to. We play a little bit more around in the application. We should be able to create a few more test cases for sure. I'm talking dozens of them, not one. All right. But how will they belong to specific categories? We'll have to see, because there are so many categories. Even if we pick one of them, we should be able to significantly create a lot of test cases. Even, for example, how many pins do we see per row? Okay, if I resize the window, how many do we need to see? Okay, if it's a mobile based size of a browser, then how does it look? So there are different test cases that we could create. We will come to the variations of it. Okay, that was yours, Mark. And boundary checks, yep. So let's not focus on what is part of this course and so on. Let's talk about these topics. Okay, course content. But everything has been put specifically on the website. Please look into that, please. I think this is good. Who write test plan? Test. Okay, team, keep your questions. A lot of questions. I would say use the chat. Let's be a little bit more creative about it. Go to itlearn.com. All right. Go to the post where I'm putting this post, right, and start putting your questions as part of the comments in here. Okay, if you go to that section where I already have the video 1 and where video 2 is going to be coming up, why don't you start putting the comments out here? For example, I put a comment earlier today saying that look forward to meeting you all tomorrow for the live webinar, right? Why don't you reply to this, or rather put a new comment and say that, hey, you know what, I have a question, and great for us to post questions here and keep answering. Since majority of you are going to be watching this video, that will make a great sense. Okay. All right, team. Thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow, and we will take it forward from there. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Bye now. Thanks, everyone. Bye.